The golden beginning. The kitchen of Moretti's Grand was alive with the symphony of sizzling pans and shouted orders. Steam rose like spirits from copper pots, and the scent of fresh herbs mixed with caramelizing onions filled the air. In the center of this beautiful chaos stood Elena Moretti, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, her chef's white spotless despite the intensity around her. "Taste this," she said to her sous chef, holding out a spoon of her signature mushroom reduction. "Tell me what's missing." At 28, Elena was already being called a culinary genius. Her family's restaurant empire had 3 locations across New York City, and she was the creative heart of it all. Every dish that left her kitchen was a masterpiece, a perfect balance of tradition and innovation. "It's perfect, chef," her sous chef replied with genuine admiration. But Elena shook her head. "Perfect is the enemy of excellent. It needs just a touch more truffle oil and a whisper of white pepper." This was who she was. A perfectionist. A dreamer. A woman who believed that food could tell stories and heal wounds. She poured her soul into every plate, and the critics loved her for it. 3 Michelin stars adorned Moretti's Grand, and 2 more restaurants were in the planning stages. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Marcus. "Can't wait to marry you next month, my love. You're going to be the most beautiful bride." Elena smiled, her heart warming. Marcus Chun was everything she thought she wanted. Handsome, charming, and her business partner. He managed the financial side of the restaurant empire, while she handled the creative vision. They were the perfect team, or so she believed. "Elena!" Her father's voice boomed from the doorway. Giovanni Moretti was a large man with silver hair and a voice that could command a room. "Your mother and I are heading home. Don't work too late, tesoro." "I won't, Papa," she promised, kissing his weathered cheek. "Just need to finish prep for tomorrow's special event." After her parents left, Elena continued working. The evening dinner service went perfectly as always. By 11 o'clock, the last customer had left, and her staff was cleaning up. She decided to check on the private wine cellar in the basement, where they kept their most expensive bottles for special occasions. The basement stairs creaked under her feet as she descended. The cool air wrapped around her like a blanket. She reached for the light switch, but froze when she heard voices coming from the storage room beyond the wine cellar. "We can't keep doing this," a woman's voice said. Sounded familiar. "Why not?" A man replied. "In a month, we'll be married to the Moretti fortune. Then we can do whatever we want." Elena's blood turned to ice. That was Marcus's voice. "But what about Elena?" the woman asked. "She trusts us completely. That's what makes this so easy, Sophia." Sophia. Her best friend since college. The woman who had helped her pick out her wedding dress just last week. Elena's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. Her whole body trembled as she pressed herself against the cold stone wall, hidden in the shadows. ####the betrayal unfolds. "I actually feel bad sometimes," Sophia continued. "She's been nothing but kind to me." Marcus laughed, and the sound was cruel. "She's been nothing but naive. Do you know how easy it was to get her to make me a partner? She practically handed over half the business because she loved me." His voice dripped with mockery. "Once we're married, I'll have legal access to everything. Then we can push the old man out, sell the restaurants to that hotel chain that's been making offers, and retire rich." "And Elena?" Sophia's voice wavered slightly. "What about her? Once the deal is done, I'll divorce her. These things happen. She'll be too heartbroken to fight it, especially when she finds out about us. Besides, who's going to believe her if she tries to claim fraud? I have 2 years of carefully documented business decisions showing how much I've contributed to the company's success." Elena felt like she was drowning. Every word was a knife twisting in her heart. The man she loved, the man she was going to marry in 30 days, was playing her for a fool. And her best friend, the woman she had trusted with her deepest secrets, was helping him. "What if she doesn't go quietly?" Sophia asked. "Then we'll make sure she has no choice. I've been documenting every little mistake she makes in the kitchen. Food safety violations, undocumented recipe changes, anything I can use. If she fights the divorce, I'll destroy her reputation. No restaurant will ever hire her again." "You're brilliant," Sophia purred, and Elena heard the sound of kissing. She couldn't listen anymore. Tears streaming down her face, Elena carefully backed away from the wall, trying not to make a sound. But in her emotional state, she bumped into a wine rack. A bottle teetered then fell, shattering on the stone floor. The voices stopped immediately. "What was that?" Sophia whispered. "Someone's down here," Marcus said, his voice sharp with panic. Elena ran. She bolted back toward the stairs, her chef's clogs slapping against the floor. Behind her, she heard Marcus shouting her name. She reached the kitchen and grabbed her phone, fumbling to dial her father's number. Come on," she whispered, looking over her shoulder. Marcus burst through the basement door, his face twisted with anger and fear. "Elena, wait. Let me explain. Stay away from me," she screamed, backing toward the exit. "You don't understand," he said, advancing on her with his hands raised. "It's not what you think. I heard everything. You're stealing from my family. You never loved me. ####the accident." Sophia emerged from the basement, her eyes wide with panic. "Elena, please just listen. Both of you are liars. Thieves. I'm calling the police, I'm calling my father, and I'm going to make sure you both pay for this." Marcus's expression changed. The fake concern vanished, replaced by cold calculation. "You can't prove anything. It's your word against ours." "I recorded it," Elena lied, holding up her phone. "Every word. The police will hear exactly what you planned." It was a desperate bluff, but Marcus's face went pale. He lunged for her phone. Elena turned to run, but her foot caught on a floor mat. She stumbled sideways, crashing into the commercial stove. Her hand hit the gas control knobs, and she heard the hiss of gas being released. "No." She tried to reach for the knobs, but Marcus grabbed her arm. "Give me that phone," he demanded, trying to wrench it from her grip. They struggled. In the chaos, neither of them noticed Sophia backing toward the door, her eyes fixed on the stove where a pilot light still flickered from the evening service. The explosion happened so fast that Elena barely registered it. One moment she was fighting for her phone, and the next a wall of flame engulfed the kitchen. The gas had spread quickly through the ventilation system, and when it found the pilot light, the entire kitchen became an inferno. Elena felt the heat before she felt the pain. She was thrown backward, her body slamming into the wall. Fire was everywhere, crawling up her arms, her face, her hair. She screamed, a sound of pure agony that seemed to come from someone else. Through the flames, she saw Marcus stumble toward the exit. Sophia was already gone, having escaped the moment the fire started. Neither of them looked back. Neither of them tried to save her. "Help me," Elena cried out, but smoke filled her lungs, choking her words. The last thing she remembered before darkness claimed her was the sound of sirens in the distance, and the bitter knowledge that the two people she had trusted most in the world had left her to die. ####the awakening. The smell of antiseptic was the first thing Elena noticed when she woke. Then came the pain. It started in her hands, then spread up her arms across her neck, and touched the left side of her face. It was a burning, relentless agony that made her wish she was still unconscious. "She's awake," a gentle voice said. "Miss Moretti, can you hear me?" Elena tried to speak, but her throat was raw. She managed a small sound. "Don't try to talk yet," the nurse said kindly. "You've been through a terrible ordeal. You were in a fire 3 weeks ago. You're at Manhattan General Hospital. 3 weeks. Elena's mind struggled to process this. She tried to lift her hand to touch her face, but her arms were wrapped in thick bandages. "Your family has been here every day," the nurse continued. "Should I get them?" Elena managed a nod. Minutes later, her mother rushed in, tears streaming down her face. Her father followed, looking like he had aged 10 years. "My baby," her mother sobbed, taking Elena's bandaged hand carefully. "My precious girl." Over the next few days, Elena learned the full extent of her injuries. Second- and third-degree burns covered 30% of her body, primarily her arms, hands, neck, and the left side of her face. The doctors said she would heal, but there would be scars. Significant scars. "The important thing is that you're alive," her father said, his voice breaking. "The restaurant can be rebuilt. Everything else can be replaced. But Elena knew some things couldn't be replaced. Her trust. Her innocence. Her face. What happened to Marcus and Sophia? She asked hoarsely when she could finally speak. Her parents exchanged a look. They gave statements to the police, her father said carefully. They said you were working late, that you called them to come help you with something. They said you must have accidentally turned on the gas while showing them a new recipe. They barely escaped before the explosion. That's a lie, Elena whispered, then louder. That's a lie. They were stealing from us. They were planning to. We know, Tesoro, her father interrupted gently. We believe you. But there's no proof. The fire destroyed the basement where you heard them talking. Your phone was destroyed too. And they have each other as witnesses to support their version of events. The police investigated, her mother added softly. But Marcus had been careful. Every document, every decision he made was technically legal. Without evidence of the conversation you heard, there's nothing to charge them with. The fire was ruled an accident caused by a gas leak. Marcus even suggested that you were stressed about the wedding and might have been careless. Elena felt her world crumbling. So they get away with it? They tried to kill me and they just walk free. They've disappeared, her father said, his face hardening. Marcus emptied his bank accounts and left town. Sophia went with him. We tried to freeze the business accounts, but he had already transferred most of the liquid assets to offshore accounts in his name. He used his legal authority as your business partner. By the time we realized what was happening, millions were gone. The full weight of betrayal crushed Elena's chest. The restaurants. We're struggling, her mother admitted. The insurance will cover rebuilding Moretti's Grand, but with the money Marcus stole and the bad publicity from the fire, we're in serious financial trouble. The investors are nervous. Some are pulling out. Elena closed her eyes, tears seeping through her lashes. Everything she had worked for, everything she had built was destroyed. Her family's legacy was crumbling. And the two people responsible were living freely somewhere, probably celebrating their success. ###the vow. The weeks that followed were the darkest of Elena's life. The physical pain of healing burns was nothing compared to the emotional agony. She underwent multiple surgeries to minimize the scarring. But when they finally removed the bandages, the woman staring back at her from the mirror was a stranger. The left side of her face was marked with raised, pink scars that twisted the corner of her mouth downward. Her neck bore the same marks, and her hands, her precious chef's hands, were covered in thick scar tissue that made it difficult to feel textures the way she once had. The scarring will fade with time, the doctor assured her. And there are treatments that can help improve the appearance. Laser therapy, skin grafts. But Elena wasn't listening. She was staring at her reflection, at the ruin of her once beautiful face, and something inside her was crystallizing. Not breaking, not shattering, but hardening into something new and unbreakable. The day she was discharged from the hospital, her parents tried to take her home to their house in the suburbs. But Elena refused. I need to be alone, she told them. I need time to think. But Tesoro, her mother protested. Please, Elena interrupted, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks. Trust me. I know what I need. She rented a small apartment in Brooklyn, far from the restaurants, far from the memories. For 2 months she barely left. She watched cooking shows, read culinary magazines, and scoured the internet for any mention of Marcus Chan or Sofia Rodriguez. She found them eventually. They had moved to California, where Marcus was working as a restaurant consultant, and Sophia had opened a small cafe using the stolen money. They posted photos on social media of their happy life together, living off the fortune they had stolen from her family. Elena stared at those photos for hours. Marcus's arm around Sophia's waist. Their smiling faces. The expensive clothes and luxury car in the background. They had destroyed her life, nearly killed her, and they were thriving. That's when Elena Moretti died. Not literally, of course. But the naive, trusting, gentle woman she had been was gone forever. Burned away in that kitchen fire. In her place was someone new. Someone harder. Someone who understood that kindness was a weakness that people like Marcus and Sophia would exploit. Standing in front of her bathroom mirror, Elena made a vow. They took everything from me, she whispered to her scarred reflection. My face. My restaurant. My family's fortune. My dreams. But they made one critical mistake. She leaned closer to the mirror, her eyes burning with determination. They left me alive. Elena spent the rest of that night planning. Not planning revenge in the simple sense of the word. No, this would be something much more sophisticated. She would rebuild herself stronger and smarter than before. She would create an empire that would make her family's old restaurants look small. And then, when she was powerful enough, when she had everything she needed, she would return. Marcus and Sophia thought they had won. They thought they had broken her. But they had only forged her into something far more dangerous than they could imagine. A phoenix rising from the ashes. A woman with nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Elena opened her laptop and began to research. Business strategies. Restaurant management. Branding. Marketing. Every skill she had neglected while focusing only on cooking, she would now master. She would learn to be ruthless in business the way Marcus had been, but she would do it with intelligence and planning. Her phone rang. It was her father. Elena, please come home. Your mother is worried sick. We want to help you. Papa, Elena said, her voice calm and controlled. I need you to trust me. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to save our family's reputation and get back everything Marcus stole. But I can't do it as Elena Moretti. That girl died in the fire. I need to become someone new. What are you saying? Her father's voice was filled with worry. I'm saying that in 1 year you won't recognize me. In 2 years I'll be successful enough that Marcus will hear about it. And in 3 years, I'll destroy him and Sophia so completely that they'll wish they had let me die in that fire. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then her father spoke, his voice heavy with emotion. Your mother wouldn't approve of revenge, Tesoro. This isn't revenge, Papa, Elena corrected him. This is justice. There's a difference. Another pause. What do you need from me? Elena smiled for the first time since the fire. It pulled at her scars, but she didn't care. Money for a fresh start. Enough to disappear, learn, and build something new. I'll pay you back with interest. I promise. The family owes you more than money, daughter. You have whatever you need. But Elena. Her father's voice softened. Don't lose yourself in this quest. Don't become like them. I won't, Elena promised. I'm not going to cheat or steal or hurt innocent people. I'm just going to be better than them at everything. I'm going to win by being smarter, working harder, and building something so successful that it crushes their stolen little empire. After she hung up, Elena looked at her reflection one more time. Goodbye, Elena Moretti, she whispered. Hello, Lena Rivers. The next morning, she dyed her hair from dark brown to auburn red. She ordered colored contact lenses to change her brown eyes to green. She started wearing makeup that minimized her scars while accepting they were part of her now. She changed her wardrobe from the casual chef's clothes she used to wear to professional business attire. When she looked in the mirror now, she saw someone completely different. Good. That's exactly what she needed. Elena Moretti had been soft and trusting. Lena Rivers would be hard and strategic. Elena Moretti had been betrayed and nearly killed. Lena Rivers would be invincible. Elena Moretti had lost everything. Lena Rivers would take it all back with interest. The game had begun. And this time Elena was playing to win. End of part 1. Word count 2,000 words. ## part 2. The rise of the phoenix. ## hidden identity. The small coastal town of Seabrook was everything New York City wasn't. Quiet. Peaceful. A place where people moved slowly and actually knew their neighbors' names. The salty ocean breeze carried the cry of seagulls instead of car horns, and the pace of life was measured in tides rather than subway schedules. Lena Rivers arrived on a gray October morning with 2 suitcases and a determination that burned brighter than the autumn sun. She had chosen Seabrook carefully. It was far enough from New York that no one would recognize her, but close enough to the culinary scene that she could still learn and grow. The town had a small but thriving food culture, with several family-owned restaurants and a weekly farmers market that attracted visitors from neighboring cities. She rented a tiny apartment above a bookstore, a cozy space with wooden floors that creaked and windows that overlooked the harbor. It was nothing like the luxury she had once known, but it was hers. Clean slate. Fresh start. The first week, Lena did nothing but observe. She walked through the town, visited every restaurant, tasted their food and studied their operations. She watched how they interacted with customers, how they managed their staff, and most importantly, how they handled their business. This was her education now. Not just cooking but the complete picture. Marcus had used her blind spots against her. She had been so focused on creating perfect food that she had ignored the business side. Never again. #### new skills. Lena enrolled in online business courses under her new name. Marketing, financial management, strategic planning, contract law. Every subject that Marcus had used to manipulate her, she now mastered. She studied late into the night, her laptop screen casting blue light across her scarred face. But she didn't neglect her first love. Cooking was in her blood, and she refused to let Marcus's betrayal steal that from her. The problem was her hands. The scar tissue had reduced her sensitivity, making it harder to judge textures by touch. Simple tasks that once came naturally now required concentration. Chopping vegetables, she had to watch carefully to maintain consistent sizes. Kneading dough, she had to rely on visual cues rather than feel. For the first time in her life, cooking frustrated her. One evening, close to tears after burning another batch of caramel, Lena threw her whisk across the tiny kitchen. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. Maybe they won. Maybe I should just give up. But even as the words left her mouth, she knew they were a lie. Giving up wasn't an option. It never had been. She picked up the whisk, cleaned her workspace and started again. This time she set timers. She used a thermometer. She adapted her techniques to work with her limitations rather than fighting against them. Slowly, painfully, she relearned her craft. And in the process, she discovered something unexpected. Her limitations forced her to be more precise, more scientific. She couldn't rely on instinct alone anymore. She had to understand the chemistry of cooking, the physics of heat transfer, the biology of flavor compounds. She became a better chef because of her scars, not in spite of them. #### the mentor. 3 months into her self-imposed exile, Lena got a job as a prep cook at Seabrook's most respected restaurant, the Coastal Table. It was a small establishment, only 12 tables, but it had a reputation for excellence that drew food critics from Boston and Portland. The owner and head chef was Antonio Russo, a 70-year-old Italian immigrant who had been cooking since he was 8 years old. He was a small man with weathered hands and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You have experience," he said during her interview, not as a question but as a statement. "I can tell by how you hold a knife." Lena nodded carefully. "I worked in several restaurants before I moved here, but I'm looking to learn more about the business side." Antonio studied her scarred hands. "Fire?" he asked bluntly. "Yes. Does it stop you from cooking?" "No. I've adapted." He hired her on the spot. Working under Antonio was humbling. The man was a master, but not in the flashy, ego-driven way that many celebrity chefs embraced. His food was simple, honest, and absolutely perfect. Every dish told a story. Every ingredient was treated with respect. "Cooking is not about you," he told Lena one evening as they prepped for service. "It's about the people you feed. You serve them, not your ego." The word struck her deeply. She had always poured her soul into her cooking, but Antonio was right. She had also cooked for praise, for recognition, for Michelin stars. She had let the accolades become more important than the act itself. "In Italy, my village had a saying," Antonio continued, his gnarled fingers expertly filleting a fish. "Chi vie piano va sano e va lontano." It means, who goes slowly goes safely and goes far. You are young, Lena. You are in a hurry. But good things take time. Over the months that followed, Antonio became more than a boss. He became a mentor and a friend. He taught her not just recipes but philosophy, the importance of sourcing ingredients, the art of simplicity, the business of running a restaurant without cutting corners or sacrificing quality. "You want to own your own place someday," he observed one evening after closing. It wasn't a question. Lena hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. Multiple places, eventually." "Multiple?" Antonio raised an eyebrow. "Most chefs dream of one perfect restaurant. You dream of an empire. Why? Because I need to be too big to destroy, Lena thought. Because I need to be so successful that Marcus and Sophia will see my name and know they failed to kill me. But she said, because I want to prove that good food and good business can coexist. That you don't have to sacrifice integrity to succeed. Antonio studied her for a long moment. There is pain in you. Anger. I see it sometimes when you think no one is watching. Be careful, Lena. Revenge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I'm not after revenge, Lena said, meeting his eyes. I'm after justice. There's a difference. Is there? Antonio asked gently. Make sure you know which one you're really chasing. ##### building the empire. After 18 months in Seabrook, Lena had saved enough money and learned enough skills to take the next step. She had studied the market carefully. The New England coast had a growing food tourism industry, but most restaurants either catered to locals with comfort food or tourists with overpriced mediocrity. There was a gap in the market for something different. Accessible fine dining. Exceptional food at reasonable prices, served in a casual atmosphere. Quality without pretension. She called her concept River's Edge. The name was a nod to her new identity and to the waterfront locations she planned to target. Her father had provided the seed money, and Lena had turned it into a detailed business plan. She found a small space in Seabrook, a former fish market with good bones and a perfect view of the harbor. The rent was manageable, and the location attracted both locals and tourists. Antonio helped her renovate, refusing payment but accepting a promise that she would visit him every Sunday for dinner. You will be busy soon, he said. Too busy for an old man. But Sundays you come to my house. You eat. You remember why you started cooking. River's Edge opened on a rainy April evening with 12 tables, a small team, and a menu that showcased Lena's evolution as a chef. Every dish was perfect, but more than that, every dish was smart. She had designed a menu that minimized waste, maximized profit margins, and could be executed consistently with a small staff. The food was exceptional, but the business model was brilliant. Within 6 months, River's Edge had a waiting list. Food bloggers discovered it. Critics praised it. Travel magazines featured it as a hidden gem. Lena opened a second location in Portland, then a third in Portsmouth. Each restaurant followed the same model. Exceptional food, efficient operations, and genuine hospitality. She trained her managers personally, instilling in them not just technical skills but her philosophy of cooking as service. By the end of her 3rd year away from New York, Lena Rivers owned 6 successful restaurants across New England. She had been featured in Food and Wine magazine, invited to cook at the James Beard House, and interviewed on numerous food podcasts. She had built an empire. But more importantly, she had built herself into someone Marcus wouldn't recognize. The naive girl who trusted blindly was gone. In her place was a savvy businesswoman who knew every aspect of her operations, who read every contract, who trusted no one completely. #### the return. Lena, there's someone here to see you, her assistant said one Wednesday afternoon. He says he's a real estate developer interested in discussing a potential location in New York City. Lena's heart skipped. New York. The city she had left behind. The city where Marcus and Sophia thought they had destroyed her. Send him in, she said. Her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The developer was a middle-aged man in an expensive suit. He spread out plans for a new mixed-use development in Manhattan's meatpacking district. We want River's Edge as our anchor restaurant, he explained. Your reputation for quality and profitability makes you exactly the kind of tenant that will attract others. The location was perfect. High visibility, heavy foot traffic, and Lena's research had confirmed, only 2 miles from where Sophia's cafe was struggling and Marcus was consulting for failing restaurants. I'm interested, Lena said. But I have specific requirements. They negotiated for weeks. Lena was shrewd, demanding favorable lease terms and creative control. She had learned from Antonio that going slowly meant going far, but she had also learned from Marcus that business was a battlefield. You needed to know when to be patient and when to strike. The Manhattan River's Edge would be her flagship, twice the size of her other locations with a full bar, a private dining room, and a show kitchen where customers could watch the chefs work. It would be her statement to the New York culinary world. Lena Rivers has arrived. Construction began in September. Lena spent weeks in Manhattan overseeing every detail. She stayed in hotels, wore designer sunglasses, and kept her auburn hair styled differently each time she went out. The scars on her face were still visible, but they had faded with treatment and time. More importantly, no one was looking for Elena Moretti in the confident, successful face of Lena Rivers. One evening, while inspecting the restaurant space, Lena made a deliberate choice. She walked into Sophia's cafe. It was small and trying too hard to be trendy. Exposed brick walls covered with